one. All right, let's go. All right, so, okay. Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the Innovators Roundtable. It's been a few weeks since we had a guest speaker, and I'm so thrilled tonight that we are joined by Scott Putnam. Many of you already have had the pleasure of knowing Scott from his work with InventRight as a coach and a mentor, where he always shares his positivity and bright light, assisting other inventors getting their products to market. For those of you meeting Scott for the first time.
Can I interrupt?
Yes, let's hold that thought.
I think we need to tell everybody to put themselves on mute. We're getting a lot of background music.
Yeah, a little background noise. I don't know where that's coming from, but let me make really quickly.
It's Edgar. Edgar, can you please mute yourself?
Edgar, the troublemaker. I'm going to mute him really quick. Shad, I'm going to go ahead and make you a co-host really quickly, if that's all right. Or Garth, Shad, do you want to fight over it, or should I just pick one?
You can just pick one. I think we can both be co-hosts actually. So
let's see. I don't know. I'll try it really quickly. Sorry for the brief interruption here, but we want to make sure this is a smooth session because I know there's going to be a lot of great info. All right, there you go. Garth, you've got the power. So, as I was saying, for those of you meeting Scott for the first time tonight, just a bit about his background, really, really interesting. He joins us tonight from Iowa, but he's also lived abroad in China, where he worked as an educator. He spent many years as a health and wellness coach after turning his own health around, which is so admirable, and has licensed so many products, including the very clever and very successful Swat-N-Scoop. Many inventors choose between licensing their inventions and bringing them to market themselves. However, Scott chose a very interesting path with his Swat-N-Scoop. Not only did he license it, but he also ventured it himself. So tonight we'll be hearing all about how he did that and much, much more. So please take a moment to get yourself situated with a pen and some paper to jot down notes. We always cover tons of information during these calls, and you'll be glad you came prepared. You're welcome to start questions in the chat at any time. We're always happy to hear from you. So feel free to stay unmuted as long as there's no background noise, Edgar, and raise your hand if you prefer to ask your question directly. I'll start the session tonight with a few questions for Scott, and then we'll open it up more to hear from everybody. Quick disclaimer before we get going here, the information shared tonight is not legal advice, and please consult an attorney for any specific legal issues you have. Thank you in advance to all of you for being here tonight, and especially to you, Scott. You know, you're one of my favorites, and it's always great to have a good excuse to chat with you. So without further ado, let's jump into some questions. Okay, we ready? So Scott, as I mentioned, you've licensed a few products already, and you've entered the Swat-N-Scoop. So going back to the previous products that you licensed, did you consider venturing any of those before you licensed them, or even after you licensed them? Did you think maybe I'm going to try to take this one to market myself too?
Wow. Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I should share a little bit more about kind of my story and where I'm at.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it.
First of all, thanks for having me on. It's so great to see everybody. For those of you that don't know, I'm also a coach at InventRight. I've been coaching for about 8 years. I recognize some faces, but there's some new people here, so this is awesome.
Yes.
So excited to be on, and I mean, hats off. Can we give Jennifer a round of applause? She is awesome, amazing, putting all this together, holding these every week, being consistent, total rock star. So thank you very much for having me on, and I'm honored to be here. I hadn't been able to join a lot of the other roundtables just because of schedules, so I'm like, cool, I get to see what's going on the round table. This is awesome. I love it.
Yes.
So thank you for that. So yeah, I'm a transplant from the Northwest in Iowa, Dubuque, Iowa. Still trying to figure out why anybody lives here. It's like 30 below in the winter and like 8 million degrees and all the humidity in the summer. It's like, what are people thinking? I figured it out though. It's the 2 weeks of fall and the 2 weeks of spring that are just perfect. But yeah, I have 2 daughters. One started college, the other one's in high school. Been inventing, always a tinkerer, always coming up with ideas ever since I was a little kid. Like a lot of us here, you know, I always tell people on new student calls, like, you found your tribe. We understand you. Welcome, which is great. And it's always like, oh, thank God, you know, my spouse is getting tired of me saying, hey, honey, I got a new idea. Remember my wife one time I did that. She's like, oh my God, okay, before you tell me the next idea that's gonna save the planet, can you at least help me with the laundry? I'm like, all right, okay, I get it. So yeah, always been inventive. You know, I joined InventRight in 2009 as a student for like 5 years, and then I just hung around long enough and they couldn't get rid of me, so they decided to hire me as a coach. And I've been doing that about 8 years. So I've been honored to just really get to know so many people from around the world and get to know their products and help them move through the process to licensing deals. So that was really, for me, my intent with this product. And then it wove into, you know, a venturing deal, which I'll get to, but I want to answer your question first about, did I ever think about venturing first? No, it scared the crap out of me. It's like, wow, it sounds expensive. And it's, you know, it's like, I don't know how to do that. That's like, how do you learn how to do that? And
Yeah.
I assume you had to have like 300 grand in cash in your safe to be able to get something off the ground. But I learned that's not the case. Over the years, I had thought about moments of doing it, but I never really had that model of like, how do you actually do that? I think there's this romanticized idea that, oh, you just have it made and you just get it on store shelves and like magic pixie dust gets sprinkled and it just happens easily and perfectly. And it's very much not the case. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. And luckily for me, I had a good mentor. At InventRight, we're all about licensing. It's not so much the venturing model. So I had to seek outside sources and had a really good mentor to help me get through that, who's now retired, but I still yank on his apron strings like, hey, I got another question, man. So he's been good about helping with that.
Yeah, relationships matter.
They do.
Quick takeaway there. Yeah.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll send them, I'll mail them a nice bottle of bourbon just to kind of grease the wheels and like, okay, I got to stay in your good graces here. But yeah, so that was what really made the difference. So short, that was a long answer to your short question. Not really. I was really focused on the licensing model.
Okay. So what, okay, at this point now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're in hundreds of stores on your own with the Swat-N-Scoop. That's correct, right?
Yeah. We're in about 700 stores now.
Which is incredible. Congratulations on that. Now, what was it about the Swat-N-Scoop? And if you wouldn't mind, Scott, do you want to share it? I know you have your display behind there. Do you want to share one?
Sure.
And maybe could you tell us a little bit about what it was about this product versus the other products that made you think that you could go ahead and just have a go at bringing this one to market yourself?
Yeah. The why in the world would you want to venture question. So I'll give you a little background on the product itself. As a dad with young daughters, I'd hear that scream that was like, oh, that's a like higher decibel that normally only dogs can hear that. So I go running into their room and I knew it's the bug scream. It's different. It's a different kind of scream. I'd go in like dun 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 as the, you know, superhero dad. And it's like, all right, how do I get that big spider off the wall back outside alive? Yeah. And it was always like looking for something, a piece of mail or a glass and a slide something under it. And like, why isn't all I need is a scoop, just to scoop the thing up. Spiders, especially naturally, you get near them or you touch them, they want to drop to the ground. They just drop right in. So I created this big prototype and early on had pitched that, and it was big and a sliding thing to trap them in there. And it was just too much. The feedback was very consistent that, hey, interesting idea, but it's too big, too much going on. So I let it collect dust for years, but I kept using
Wow,
it.
really?
Yeah, it wasn't like a really linear process. It was, okay, that's over. But then one day I was looking at a fly swatter, and if I swat a fly, I always try to scoop it up, and it never doesn't work that well. It just pushes them along, and it needs a beveled edge. And then I started thinking, what could I do to a fly swatter to make it also scoop it up when you're done? Or bees or wasps, or be able to scoop any other creepy crawler that makes their way into your house. So the wheel started spinning, and I thought, okay, a two-sided fly swatter or bug swatter with, this is the packaging, kind of like superhero looking comic book style. So ultimately it's this. Let me get the phone out of there. So basically looks like a fly swatter. So you start really narrowing it down or zooming in. So it's got this extra beveled edge. Really, it lets you scoop things off of walls and just toss them outside. Like we don't have to, I mean, maybe people want to kill every bug that comes in, but really it's like you can catch and release a lot of bugs. So this is the kind of the end result. You know, it's flexible, but still stiff enough to be able to get things off of walls and ceilings back outside where they live. And just placed an order for, we have a few other colors.
Oh, nice.
A charcoal. So it's kind of darker, people like, so it's like, ew, the bug guts, can't see it as well. This is a shrink wrapped version for Amazon packaging.
Got it.
So they all about like an 18-inch limit with Amazon. Then Jennifer requested a blue one, so we did a blue one. I'm just kidding. Which, I don't know, it's kind of like a marine version. A lot of people use them on their boats. So I thought, all right, cool, let's do blue.
Yep.
And I did, a lot of you, or some of you may have responded. I threw something out on LinkedIn about color choices and things, and I appreciate everybody responding. Yeah, I remember Michelle and Jennifer, a few others too. So thank you for that. Yep. I'm babbling. Let me circle back to your question, which was about why that product eventually.
Why that one? Yeah. And where the courage came from, where the switch happened.
Yeah, you know, it was really two things. One was finding somebody that could help me do it, like really getting good information from someone that I trusted that had been doing it for 25 years. Because if you jump on Google and you jump into those rabbit holes, like, that sounds perfect, but so does that. And who do I trust? And where do I go? And what's it going to cost? And how do I know if they're marking it up from the factory, if you have a middleman, all that kind of stuff. So I was able to plug into his direct factory contact. So I know I'm getting the same pricing that he would have gotten after 25 years of working with, you know, with this person. So that was one. The other was when I realized that the utility patent was not going to cost $15,000. Got some bids for, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ultimately found a good patent attorney that agreed to do it for like $3,500.
Wow.
Which is like, really?
People are excited.
Okay.
People are excited about that number. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some lessons there. Cheap doesn't always mean good.
Right.
But expensive doesn't always mean good either.
Right.
So it's really good to really do your due diligence with patent attorneys. The molds that I thought were going to be $35,000 to $80,000 were like $3,500 in China. So all of a sudden it's like, it started sounding more doable. Like,
Yeah.
I could probably make that happen. So those were a couple things. I was still really nervous about it, but ultimately part of what was nudging me along was that the factory or the companies that I was contacting for licensing, because that was my original intent, were asking for samples. And I had, which is normal, all of them do, but I was trying to, you know, 3D print locally. In our library, you could 3D print, but it was only to a certain length. And then I was trying to glue the handle together and create this nasty thing. And I'm like, I can't send this to companies. So I thought, all right, I could have the product made, packaged, maybe even get it into retail, which would potentially increase my, chances of licensing the product, lower the company's risk, be able to send out actual samples with packaging to the potential licensees.
Yep.
So it all just kind of came together, and I was really nervous going through it. I had a million questions. My learning curve is like, boom, way, way steep. But I'm at a point where it's like, I feel like I'm on the other side of all that. Now I can see it a little more clearly. Always more to learn, of course.
Yep. So Scott, at what point did the licensing deal come about, and how exactly did you make that happen when you already are bringing it to market yourself?
Yeah, great question. So I went to a trade show in Phoenix that was part of it was a mid-states, there's a buying group called Mid-States Distributing that does a lot of farm and fleet. So the deal with my mentor, his name's Jim, was really that let's start out small. Don't try to bang on the door of Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot. You got to grow this organically and start out small. So we decided to do really mainly, or his suggestion was starting with farm and fleet stores, especially within the Mid-States group. They're easy to approach. They're great to work with. The trade shows are really fun. And so it's funny, I got a booth that I split with Brendan Bauer at Grand Fusion Housewares. We just agreed that I could, split it with them, because at that point we had done a co-branding deal. This is kind of a little offshoot of the story here, where they were able to put their logo on the product. They get it out into their distribution channels. Comes from my factory, and everybody wins. So we're at the trade show pitching this, and Jonah White of Billy Bob Products, great guy, awesome guy. If you're not liking and following and commenting on his stuff on LinkedIn, you should, because the guy is incredible. Like, he's written a book too. I mean, his pets are things like bears and elk and like big animals.
Buffalo.
He's a big animal. A bull.
Bull.
Yeah, a camel named Earl. Like, these are his pets. Who does that? I think the bull actually comes into his house, like a big lodge thing. So incredible guy. I had met him years earlier because he had a show called Gags to Riches on the Discovery Channel. And my wife's uncle and I hauled our invention at the time to be on the show, which we were there, met everybody, filmed everything. Ultimately, we weren't on the show, but we got to meet him. So at the trade show, it was great because he came up and we were just talking, and he's gotten out of, he did like the Billy Bob teeth, kind of like caveman looking teeth. He built an empire with that product, but now is getting more into pest control. At that time, only had a couple of products, and he wanted to expand his product line, which he still does. If you have pest control products, check out Jonah White, Billy Bob Products. There's a little tip. So I could see him like studying it at the trade show. Like, it wasn't like, oh yeah, cool. It was really like slowly rotating, like analyzing it. My wife was there too, and she's watching, going, man, he's like really studying that. And what he was doing is like his wheels were spinning to create a version of the product that's a different design that fits what his vision of the product, which is still a swatter with a built-in scoop. That's actually, I have it here. I can grab it if you guys want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome, Christopher. Welcome, Wesley. Welcome, Dee. Good to see you guys.
So it's basically big, like heavy duty swatter. His scoop is further down, so it's a little, it's quite a different design, but still could lean on the patent for a built-in scoop. So he's like, hey, would you consider licensing this? And you can keep doing your own, whatever you want to do. And I'm like, so I'm creating my own competitor that I'm getting royalties on. That sounds brilliant. Yeah, let's talk. So we did, and then it worked out great. He's great to deal with.
That's amazing.
So that's how that came about, and it was not planned. I wasn't doing outreach. I had reached out to some really big companies like Spectrum Brands. They liked the product. They were thinking about it for their Black Flag line. Ultimately, my cheerleaders, both of them. There were two, they left the company,
Oh,
and it was just kind of got thrown on the back burner.
yeah.
So
So
yes.
moving
Fun.
forward with other products, is there anything in particular you would do differently? Would you still try to do both licensing and venturing on additional products? And is there one you would do first, like chicken versus egg in a particular order? Or, you know, because you have when you do bring it to market yourself, you do have the proof of sales, which is nice. And then you can maybe hopefully take that to a licensee and say, hey, look, this is what we've done already with your help, XYZ. Let's bump up that royalty a little bit because I've already put some effort in. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. The process in the beginning is the same. You still need a sell sheet. You still need a video, a demo. You know, you still need a list of companies. You still need to protect it. So my advice would be going for the licensing first, getting some feedback, because you're going to be showing it to a lot of companies that are going to have a lot of input about, oh, have you thought about this? Or could you add a little thing over here? Or could you make it shorter or wider or whatever? That's great information, collect big money on molds and, you know, that kind of thing. So that's the marketplace talking to you saying, hey, we like this product. Or if you have 50 companies and they all say that's a ridiculous product, I've never seen something so crazy in my life. I mean, that's good information to have too. It might make me think twice about, oh, maybe I should change the design or do something different.
Great point, Scott.
I would do that, see what your feedback is. You know, if you get, like I did, a lot of companies saying, wow, this is super cool, but we need more. We need a sample, or we need, you know, can you get pricing? You know, do you have feedback? Do you have any market research? Some of those kinds of things. You know, you'll be moving in the right direction. The other bit of advice is all about, you know, really, if you're going to venture, do it with a product that's very simple. And that's, I mean, anybody will tell you that.
Yeah.
So if you have a carrot peeler and a hoverboard, you know, let's really start with the carrot peeler, because it's going to be way less expensive, way easier, way faster.
Absolutely. Enzo, I saw you had a question, which I since lost. Do you want to take the mic for a second?
Oh, no, yeah. Scott answered it. I wanted to know about the manufacturing, but then he answered it through he networked with a guy who shared his manufacturer with him.
Right.
Because that's what I'm struggling with, is with the manufacturing. It's so easy to trust in the wrong people or the wrong company or manufacturer, and then, you know, get your stuff stolen. And he answered the question perfectly, and also he mentioned that the plates, he made the molds in China, and I wanted to know if also his manufacturer was in China, but he did answer that. So that lets me know that China is probably not such a bad place to, you know, go into. I just need to be careful. I guess I should do what he did, and what a lot of other people do, is go through trusted network of people. So thank you.
And yeah. So, Scott, do you have any other tips when looking for manufacturers abroad, or even in the States here?
Yeah, it's such an important thing, because there are a lot of companies out there that are happy to rip you off. I mean, I'm not talking about like Chinese knockoffs. I'm talking about companies in the US that will charge you a lot of money for being the ones that are helping coordinate shipments or coordinate the manufacturing. But for a lot of us, it's like, well, how else do you do it? I don't speak Mandarin. I can't knock on the door of these factories and say, hi, can you make, you know? So you do need those connections and those contacts. I think it's really, the best answer to that would be network with people that have good relationships, that are happy with their factory. You know, things like that will be a lot easier. I know there's a lot of manufacturing kind of moving toward India. I've heard good things about it. I don't have any contacts. I don't have a good frame of reference for kind of what that process looks like and how it might differ from manufacturing in China, but it could be something to look into.
I think South America also is growing in terms of manufacturing, so that could be an option.
Yeah, even Mexico.
Yes, yes, that would be amazing. Scott, were you able to receive samples before you received your first order from your manufacturer? And how did that work? Did it come out right the first time? Did you need to have it redone a couple times? Did they charge you each round? How did that work?
Great question. Yeah, you always want to get factory samples that you can test and check out. So the first batch of these, the design was great. Like it really looked pretty perfect right out of the gate. We had a lot of engineering that went into it. And so I was happy with the way it looked. The problem was they had used a type of plastic that was recycled, which on one hand, it sounds great, but what it produced was a more brittle plastic, polyethylene that was cracking.
Oh.
So I did some pretty, I would say, somewhat intensive testing, like beating the crap out of them on sharp objects, hundreds of times.
Oh my God.
Keeping it overnight in the freezer and then taking it out like super cold and then just smacking it. And so the first one we had to say, hey, the mold is fine, but the materials need to change. So we switched to it's called a Korean DDP or something. It's like 100% polyethylene. And it's really, you can beat the living tar out of this and it hardly leaves any scuffs. And I did, and it's kind of fun. It gets some frustrations out. So other than that, though, no, I mean, the packaging, I had a company in Minnesota help design it. And that came out great. I was really happy with the packaging, these little cards, drop it in there. The little bugs kind of look like they're inside the scoop. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, you always want to get factory sample, even with the colors. They didn't charge me for the factory samples.
Okay.
These other colors, I had a couple of each color that were shrink wrapped with the insert card that just got right here. Yeah, there was no cost to me with the idea that I'm going to order a bunch of them,
Was there any sort of signed agreement before they sent the samples? And also, did you have your patent before you started receiving the samples?
Yes, great question. So my patent was not issued before I got the first shipment of product. It was still pending.
Okay.
I was leaning heavily on the relationship that Jim had with the factory a lot. Without that, I would want more signed documents and legal things in place.
Okay.
There are other things you need to do in terms of when you place an order, getting like a pro forma invoice from them, like this is your pricing, it's good for 60 days or 90 days or whatever. And then you send the factory a purchase order. So it's all signed and, well documented. That is one thing about China. Everything is documented really well.
Super. And if it's not, get yourself a different manufacturer. So Michelle has a couple questions. Michelle, did you want to hop on?
Yeah, sure. I think you answered my first one. Yeah, Scott. Yeah, nice to see you. Congrats on the success and everything. Love the backstory, especially the where Noah actually stole your idea, but told you about it. So he just immediately shared royalties with you and done deal, like a legal steal.
Yeah, it was funny though. I think he had the idea, but yeah, he approached me before he started making them.
You thank God. Otherwise, that would have been pretty nasty. But yeah, I was wondering what's like the minimum. Like you got your samples and everything. Did you have to sign off to a certain quantity of minimum units to get those samples? Or
not really. My first order was 10,000 pieces.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'm sorry, but the first order was 1,000 pieces just to get it out into the marketplace. So my price was a little higher. And they knew that's what the order was going to be, and they still sent the samples without charging.
Nice.
Since then, the orders have been 10,000. The most recent order was 20,000 with the new colors and that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of comes down to more about relationship with them.
Okay.
If it's a factory that doesn't know you, they're probably going to charge you for samples, and it's going to be a little bit of a different experience, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I guess your friend Jim, I mean, he was working both sides, and the trust was on either side because of him.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess. So, like the way you trusted him with China, China trusted him with you, you know?
Yeah, it's sort of like that. It really is all about relationships, and having lived there for a couple of years, you really see that. And it's like they really want to get to know the vendors, and there's like elaborate dinners and drinks, and something called Baijiu, which I don't know if you guys are
Like
familiar with.
Mojo? Is it like Mojo?
It's like gasoline and turpentine, and you shoot it, and it's
Oh,
like
it's a
this stuff
drink.
has got to be flammable. It's insane. But what they call it is white wine with fruit.
Oh.
It sounds good.
The fire fruit? The fire fruit?
Fire, like, oh my God.
Okay, but yeah, thanks for that answer. You answered my question. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Anyone else have questions? Feel free to start putting them in the chat or raise your hand, whatever you're comfortable with. But I'll keep going in the meantime. Scott, what
Sure.
has
Jen-
Oh,
was that somebody?
Wesley, yeah.
Where is
Yeah,
Wesley?
if I could jump in, Scott, and congratulations on it. Looks great.
Thank you.
If you could revisit for me, please, the pretty much the title of the session, Venture or License. I was surprised to hear, well, yes, of course, the invent right model is to try and license, but I had kind of assumed, based on my experience, and I thought everyone was in a more or less similar, if you tried to license and never got any traction, but you still believe the idea was good, and even maybe in my case, the feedback from multiple companies have been, yeah, that's great. It's a good product. It really solves the problem. But I was just on the phone with a call from a guy the other day, from Go Travel, and he said that which helped me because it illuminated 9 months of no traction. He said it's too innovative and it's new. The public's uneducated. He didn't believe that it could do what he called an unassisted sale. In other words, at the airport, in the store, you have like approximately 2 seconds for someone to look at a thing and decide what it is and do they need it. So he thought it just won't pass through there, so they don't want to do it. He suggested, why don't you create a community, get some traction and do it, and then possibly they'd revisit. So
Yeah.
your experience was to attempt to license, as far as I understand, and then you ventured, but then you also licensed. How did you mix all of those things together?
Yeah, what you're making a great point here. And what we're talking about with companies that you pitch to, it's all about risk. And by going through those steps, even doing what they're asking you to do, is all about lowering their risk, especially if it's a product that needs a teeny bit of educating, which mine does too. I mean, when this isn't a package straight on, it just looks like a fly swatter until you tip it. And it's like, oh, wait, what's that? So it kind of needs about 5 seconds of explaining. I think I was running into that too, especially with the bigger companies that are used to just buying other companies. They don't necessarily want some pet project that they have to put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into, especially if it needs a lot of educating. If it doesn't need a lot of educating and it fits perfectly on their model, a lot of times they'll really look at that and potentially license it from you. But what they're getting at, and what my experience was, is that once you do bring the product to market, you have some proven sales, you show that it has traction, you're just lowering the risk for them. You know, it's
Mhm.
it's less, it's more of a proven item, which also leads you to a higher royalty rate as well. You know, if you have a virtual prototype and a sell sheet and you know a video, you might be at 5%. If you have a product that's on the market that's got a patent and trademark and websites and domain, you know, all that, you might be in, you know, 7, 8, 9 range potentially. So there can be a payoff with licensing as well. But
Right.
that's
And
why,
how do you
yeah.
then integrate if you're in a geographic area and you're both doing it, how are you not in each other's way? I mean,
yeah,
we often hear about, look, somebody, they want a license, but they want an exclusive
mhm.
and so forth. And then meanwhile, but I'm over here doing my thing as well. How does that work? Is there like some synergy, or is it competitive, or
Yeah, in my case, because it's a different version, I mean, I'm competing with Jonah, who's a much bigger operator than I am, but we're calling on the same accounts. So, which can be an issue potentially, but there's enough business out there for everybody that it's not a huge deal.
Hmm.
But what you'd want to do is when you're talking to companies about that, usually if they're going to license it from you, they're going to want an exclusive. They don't want you also selling it. My case is a little bit unique, but you might get a company that says, hey, you've been doing well on Amazon. We don't really care that much about Amazon. We'll take over retail. You go ahead and sell it on Amazon, knock yourself out. So you really, and that's going to be company by company. So if you have good communication and good relationships, you can potentially iron that out, or even draw some lines like, okay, you take the farm and fleet category, I'm going to do grocery and hardware, you know, like you can cut up those distribution lines too. I'm talking with another company right now about that exact same thing. Like, hey, I'm pretty much carved out in farm and fleet, but if you guys are strong in grocery or hardware or drugstores or boating or camping or whatever, go, and we'll just iron that out in the licensing agreement. But all that should be spelled out in the agreement so everybody's on the same page. Yeah, good luck.
Thanks,
It's-
Wesley. One of our integral members here, Christopher, has a great question here. Christopher has asked, during your negotiations with the Chinese manufacturers, did you accept the first quote provided? And if not, what was the difference between the agreed upon quote versus the initial?
Yeah, this is a really good question on a lot of levels. There's always the idea that you want to negotiate and really beat them up on price and just try to get them down as low as possible. For me, I lean heavily on my contact, Jim, about, is this a good price? You know, is this fair? How do I know? And he was talking a lot about the relationships and the culture. The minimum order was quite a bit more expensive because it was only 1,000 units. So I was just like, whatever they have, that's fine.
Yep.
The bigger order, not that 10,000 is that big, but for me, it was a bigger order. I leaned on him a lot also, like, hey, is this pricing good?
Mm-hmm.
And in my case, because of the relationship, he felt like the pricing was really good. He said you could try to beat them up for a few cents per piece, but what you might end up doing potentially is just damaging that relationship, and they're going to be less inclined to do you favors down the road, like sending samples for free and you know, maybe adjusting timelines, or you know, if you needed a rush on an order, they might be less inclined to do those kinds of things too. So
What a great point.
yeah, it's really like you want to kind of weigh that out, but it's also, if you're somebody that they don't know, just know that you're going to be paying a higher price than if it's with a factory that you have some relationship or somebody has some relationships with.
Right. I know Michelle has her hand up, but while we're on the subject of pricing, is there a specific percentage you look at from the cost of goods to what it's going to need to sell? What am I asking here? The
Retail for?
yeah, and
Mhm.
you know, are you looking to it's going to have to be 6 or 7 times that amount, or a certain markup percentage that you're comfortable with, or you should plan on once you also incorporate taxes and shipping and all of that?
Yeah, usually a good rule of thumb is like 1 to 5.
Okay.
So if it retails for $10, you should be able to have it made for $2 or less.
Okay.
The more the merrier. 1 to 10 is better. 1 to 20 obviously gives you a lot of margin. So you need to know all of your costs so you can really break that down and make sure you have margins.
Yeah.
And it starts at retail. So if you can realistically sell something for, let's say, $19.95, and you don't feel like it would sell very well at 25 or $30, you need to use that conservative number as you work backward and say, okay, if retailer's selling it for 20, they're going to want it from me at 10. My cost is this. How much wiggle room is left?
Okay.
And you got to put everything in there, because that's a big mistake a lot of new product developers that are bringing products to the market make, is they don't count everything, because they kind of have the rose-colored glasses on. They kind of don't want to know. Like, I just want to look at the good numbers. But you have to know, or it's not going to work very well.
Right.
And it is running a business. That's the other thing. Is like, you're venturing, you are starting and running a business. Whereas licensing, you hand it off, you're on to the next product. That's something I think a lot of people, aren't all that aware of. There's like this idea that it's all, super fun and easy, and it's fun, not easy. It's there's a lot to know, and you just got to know what you're getting into.
I hate to do it, but one more question, because you did just mention it. What is the most challenging part about both licensing and venturing? And then we'll get to Michelle, and then I know Dee also has a comment, and I know there's Sean in the chat.
Okay, I'll talk fast. Challenging part of licensing, I think, is having patience, being persistent, not giving up. I see that all the time. You get a few no's and it's like, forget it, this didn't work, I'm on to the next product. Even though you might have 30 more companies on your list. The first company that I licensed to, it was the last company on my list, number 42. I got 41 no's in a row. Andrew was my coach. He's like, exhaust your list. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm getting smacked around. I mean, everybody's telling me, no, what am I doing here? He's like, exhaust your list. He's like, how many do you have left? 7. Call all of them. And then I'm like, I got 2 left. This is stupid. I want to move on. He's like, no, exhaust your list. I'm like, fine. Send it to the last company that didn't take outside submissions.
Wow.
And I'm like, ever? What if I had the perfect product? Can I at least send a sell sheet? And they're like, fine, you can, if you want to mail something in.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like stamps and envelopes? Are we in the dark ages? People still do that? Yeah, that's all we can do. I'm like, all right, fine. I'm like, that's done. On to the next thing. 2 weeks later, I get a call like, hey, we really liked your product. We got your submission in the mail. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So that's probably the biggest challenge, is just staying with it, exhaust your hit list, get feedback, be objective about your own product. There's such a pervasive thing with inventors that it's like, it's our baby. I don't want anybody to say anything negative about it, which is one of the big reasons people get to the point of calling companies and they're like, whoa, I just want to slow this down. I don't want to hear my baby's ugly. I don't know. I got to handle it. So like really being objective is a big deal.
Yeah.
For venturing, biggest challenge, I think, if I could pick one, I think it's really wrapping your brain around what does it take to do this? I mean, it's financial and it's time commitment. It's really being honest with yourself about, can I start and run a business? Cash flow analysis, spreadsheets, numbers. I mean, there's all the fun stuff, like, the packaging and the product. There's a lot of fun stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that's not that fun.
Yeah.
So it's like just knowing what you're getting yourself into.
And how much mental space that's going to take on top of it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
All right, let's get to Michelle, and then Dee, and then Sean.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, writing notes before I forget my questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, when you said the licensee wouldn't let you sell it on your own on the side, I'm kind of surprised. I've always heard that they would typically love that. And so is that unusual that they wouldn't let you sell? Like, I guess you would buy from them at cost or whatever, and then sell on your own. Or would they charge you a fee for the product, and then maybe they'd let you sell?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really all comes down to what's written in the licensing agreement. I think they'd love to have you as a sales rep.
Yeah.
If you're selling it, you could potentially get a sales commission plus the royalty. What they wouldn't likely, unless it's a unique situation, is you shipping product to their customers and then you're taking all that margin that would have been theirs, where they would just pay you the commission on it.
Okay.
I think most would, I mean, unless they're a big corporation, but if they're a smaller to medium-sized company, yeah, you want to put the sales hat on and get them out there. Yeah, we'll pay you an extra 8% or whatever.
Like point them to the company that's selling, that manufactures for you or whatever. Yeah.
It's a great point. I'm having that exact conversation right now with another company that's interested in licensing it. And they're like, well,
Oh, wow.
your existing accounts, if you want, we'll pay you X amount commission plus the royalty. So I'm like, okay.
Cha-ching.
listening.
Yeah, another avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one other question I'm just wondering about. Initially you said the fly swatter, when you see it from the front, it just looks like a fly swatter. You can't tell that it's a scoop. So would your manufacturer alter it slightly? Let's say you put just a scoop here. Would they do that because it would potentially increase sales because maybe the product function is more obvious in the front view? Like, would they be open to changing it for free, or?
They'd be open to changing it, not for free. It would be changing the mold.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. I don't know what kind of expenses that is, or if they could just like cut like part of the top
like
of one side, just like one
like
little
a smiley
scoop.
face.
Yeah, or something, because that would show the scoop function.
Yeah, it's funny. I talked in depth about that with our engineer, and ultimately I decided to keep it the way it is so that when you're scooping like a bug off a corner of a ceiling or something, it kind of traps them in there a little better.
Yeah.
If it had a big smiley, it might make it may work fine, but it could potentially open up the possibility that they're just kind of jumping over the side or the front of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a good eye for that because we talked about that exact thing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Okay. Well, continued success for you.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah. Thanks.
Dee.
Thanks for answering.
Of course.
Welcome, Dee.
Thank you. How you doing, Scott? Thanks so much, mate.
Good, buddy.
I love the fact that number one, it was on the shelf and you brought it back to life. I thought that was fascinating. That was cool. Now I'm creating a product and it's made of, well, I thought it was gonna be made of PE. And I was talking to my coach and who's Carl, and he goes, well, you're probably thinking you should go to PP. So I know you started on PE, and then what did you end up on?
We did go back and forth between the two. This is actually now, I think I misspoke earlier. It is a polyethylene.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a polypropylene, I think, and polyethylene. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Two options.
Yeah. Kind of.
Is one more rubbery? Is it one's more rubbery?
Slightly softer, I think. And I'm not a materials expert.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you could talk to somebody that's really in the know with materials and get some better answers. A lot of it comes down, and there's websites that talk about materials and what the differences are and what they're for and what makes a better material for a like a gasoline can versus a spatula or something else.
Yeah, sure. And the second thing I want to know is your sticker. Is that a sticker or is that a print that you've got on your?
Yeah, this is actually embossed.
Wow.
So the factory like embossed it on there, which I thought was really cool. So they don't come, I mean, I suppose after a while beating it up, it'll come off, but yeah, I was pretty happy. I know Jonah went with a sticker and then the little, like for his hang, it's there. So there's really minimal packaging, which I think is super smart.
Interesting.
Because that way people can pick it up, they can see it, they can play with it. Whereas mine, it's like, they'd have to take it out of the packaging, and a lot of times people are hesitant to do that. So I may end up eventually tweaking that a little bit if needed.
His looks like the bugs would fall right out because it's just a teeny scoop. And the
Yeah.
holes are big, so wouldn't some bugs just fall through that?
I think
remnants of bugs.
smaller ones would. I think of this more like you're more of a swatter than a scooper, and you just kind of want a dustpan, built-in dustpan. But it's cool. It's fun to smack stuff with.
And huge.
It's big.
Thanks,
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, buddy.
Yeah, Dee, thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Sean has asked, once you received your first 10K pieces, at what point did you get feedback from the retailers that it was selling well? And when did you get the feedback that you felt comfortable enough to continue to sell?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's really an interesting story. The first account I got it into was a local farm and fleet that was part of the Mid-States group. And early on, they got behind the product and had it up by the registers in the impulse areas. And it did really well. So they felt good about, second orders, third orders. I do have a couple accounts where they didn't really get behind it that much, and it's on like aisle 87, which nobody goes to, and you can't see it because of the curvature of the earth. Like some of these like massive stores that it's not doing that well in.
Okay.
The other thing I didn't do initially was come out with the floor display right away. So we have this little floor display now that just kind of tells, move over here, more of the story of the product, holds 36 pieces. That's kind of your silent salesperson, so to speak, that helped a lot. I wish I would have opened with that, because it might have gotten more product on floors, which would have had more traffic and sold more ultimately.
Got it. All right. Thanks, Sean. We have Keith, Derek, and I know Melanie. Let me get to Melanie. Melanie has asked, and then we'll get to Keith and Derek. And then Melanie, how many times did each company, would you follow? How many times did you follow up with each company with your submissions when you were trying to license it?
Initially trying to license it, a lot. Beating down doors, like you have to do that. I think.
How often too, Scott?
Oh, how often? Yeah. I mean, our model is, I'm very squeaky until they've seen the sell sheet, until I've gotten permission to get it into the company, and then I kind of throttle back. So I'm following up once a week.
Okay.
Initially until they've seen the sell sheet, and then I'll go to like, every couple weeks, alternating, a quick phone message or an email, with a phone call. But if you don't timestamp it, so if you call in the morning and nobody answers, you can call back in the afternoon. They might have been on a coffee break or the next day. What you don't want to do is leave 27 messages in 2 days because they're like, stalker alert.
Right.
It's not hard to get put into the stalker box. So we just want to be a little careful with that.
All righty. Thanks, Melanie. Keith and then Derek. And just a heads up, Scott, we are at the hour here. It's 9 p.m. Eastern time. If you have to hop off at any point, let us know. Otherwise, we'll just keep on racking your brain here with our questions.
Yeah, no, I'm good. So we can keep
thank
thinking.
you so much.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
appreciate everybody's time too.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. Keith.
Yeah, hey Scott, great job. Quick question. I came in late, so you may have already covered this. Is your factory the same as Jonah's factory?
No. He has, he's been dealing with factories for the last 30 years, and he's recently though looking at a factory in the US to have them made in the USA, which I think is kind of the angle to try to get it into Walmart, because that's a huge deal for Walmart right now. But no, different factory. He offered to help if I ever need help or I wanted to change factories or whatever. So I knock on wood, everything's good so far.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Great question though.
All right. Thanks, Keith. Derek and then Michael.
Okay.
And Edgar.
Yeah.
All right. Scott, first of all, congratulations on your product and the success of it.
Thanks, Derek.
So you had mentioned that you were pretty scared about venturing initially because you thought you had to have like a lot of money, like $10,000 or whatever, and you found out that that was not the case. So what were your sources of financing your project, and how do you contain the costs?
Yeah, man, it was. I should get my wife on this call. So
We'll wait, grab her. Get your girls on too. I know they're a big part of your inventing, so.
They are, yeah. And I wanted to share the story about the show that we're going to be on too.
Oh, great. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, great question, Derek. It was really a combination of whatever I could drain from the savings account and still stay married, as well as honestly, like credit cards. And I just kind of made it work. I didn't go try to get a bunch of business loans, or I didn't do a GoFundMe or Kickstarter or anything. I just thought, okay, this is small enough at this point. It was still a chunk, right? But I felt like, all right, we can do this. We can make this happen. So that helped. And we had a house fire a few years ago too. So we had a little insurance money that I could use for inventory. So yeah, you get to a point where initially, especially like the business owes you some money. So, and we're just about break even now, maybe a little above, but it takes a little while, Yeah. I think where people make mistakes is getting way over their head, mortgaging themselves to the hilt and getting into tons of debt. And then, their health, like the stress level goes way up. So if you can keep it small, don't try to go too far too fast. I mean, keep it small, keep it organic, be methodical. The other thing is, as inventor, I don't know if it's an inventor thing or if it's just a person new to owning your own business, but there's something about learning to say no, because every opportunity that pops up is like, whoa, that sounds great. Oh, that sounds great. It's like, yes, 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 yes. And it's like, wait a minute, that was a waste of money and I shouldn't have done that. And so you learn. I've definitely, beat myself up with things like that, even like working with a company that was going to help me get it into Europe and all this stuff. Like early on, I mean, I spent a few grand with them and then it was like, wait, what? Why? There's so much business in the US. What am I even thinking? So kind of reeled back from that. So anyway, but yeah, you just make it work. But again, I would be careful about just overextending too far where you're really stressed from the moment you wake up in the morning. So you don't want that either.
Great advice. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody recently who's venturing now versus licensing, and has had success both or in the licensing, and her thoughts were kind of, maybe the first time around, don't aim to buy, a new yacht when you're done. Like think of it almost more of as a learning experience, because it is a whole new career for many people. They've never done it before. It's the first time. There's a lot that you have to learn. And if you have a selection of products that you're going to be working on in the future, even better, because then you don't have that pressure on yourself to have a home run right out the gate. So moving on, we have Michael and then Edgar, and yeah, let's hear what Michael has to say. Welcome, Michael.
Gee, thanks, Scott, for presenting all this. It's really great information.
Of course.
Yeah, so my question is, like, for inventors that haven't licensed anything yet, any words of wisdom on how to go about, lessons learned from licensing agreements that you suggest?
Yeah. Do you mean like specifically from lessons within the licensing agreement itself, or just kind of in general?
Just the licensing agreement. Like say you've gone through, you kind of talk to them, you kind of like know what you're doing, but the license agreements have got so many different twists and turns and things. Is there any major things to like really watch out for that you're
Michael's one of our most analytical members.
Yeah, I can see. That's great. I can't give any legal advice, but just from my own battle wounds and things,
Yeah.
some things you want to pay attention to, like make sure you're on their insurance policy, things like that. Lessons learned. Sub-licensing is something to pay attention to, because if it's not specifically written in there, they could sub-license your product to Europe or Canada or wherever, and you may not make a nickel on that. So you want to make sure there's some language about sub-licensing. Having exit clauses, knowing how to get out of it. I think that's important. Performance clauses, I don't think it's a common practice, but legally a company could license your product and just sit on it to keep it out of the marketplace.
Yeah.
It's bad practice, but it does happen. So having performance clauses in there is a big deal. Having a licensing attorney look over it before you sign it is good practice. But really trusting your gut too. And if you're with a good company that has a good track record and they're not being sued by 50 inventors that got ripped off, that's a good thing too. But yeah, our InventRight, Paul, our negotiation guy, is great at looking through agreements and saying, "Oh, we got to do a deeper dive here. I don't like this. I don't like the way that's written. We need to clarify this," because sometimes licensing agreements have, like you're getting paid on, net profit, not net sales. It's like, or are you paying the janitor before I get my cut? Like, what is net profit? Let's break that down, because we need to find that out. So yeah, I think really breaking it down and knowing what you're signing. If there's anything that's ambiguous or vague, clearing all that up so you feel really comfortable.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Edgar.
Hello.
Edgar, hey buddy, how are you?
Welcome.
Fine. How are you?
Good. I love your
first of
screensaver. It makes me want to open my eyes wider.
Right. We're
Okay.
paying attention. We're paying attention.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship and licensing. It's like the Beatles song, "The Long and Winding Road."
Yeah.
And is it my imagination, or the Swat-N-Scoop you licensed is more flexible? Like it has a lot more bounce than yours. Yours is more rigid, right? Okay.
They're pretty similar. It's like this has a taller top where I have a longer handle. I wanted something that could reach walls, like ceilings, and a little taller spaces. This has definitely more of like a surface. If you're a bad aim, I would go with this one. If you just
as a tennis player, I prefer I'm more sensitive or sensible to like handheld objects, and I prefer those that have more bounce, So that was my comment. And of course, congratulate you for your success. Get the book. I don't know if you've read it, Game Changer by Rob Angel. Okay. He's the creator of Pictionary.
Oh
and,
yeah. That's not your post.
He chronicles a lot of what you've been through, in companies approaching him, and he really did a great job. He had a lot of success, but and I think at the end, I haven't reached the final chapter. Hasbro, who approached him several times, ended up buying his all his business for like $38 million. So, but it's parallel lines to what you're explaining right now. So it's very interesting.
Cool.
And thank you, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. And I saw your post in the chat about that too.
Right.
Thanks for
Game
that.
Changer is the name of the book. You're
Yeah.
gonna like it. Thank you, and
Pleasure.
congratulations.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Edgar. There's also, we were talking about nutrition and health. I'm just going to sidebar for a second. There's a Netflix, there's a film called The Game Changers. It's all about these professional athletes switching to a plant-based diet. And we have some background with that. So if anybody's looking or interested in that, I'm just throwing that out there too.
Definitely.
Well,
Yeah, speaking
yes,
of
right
which,
now I'm going to try to pitch a TV series, movie magic toy. And I'm going to start doing my rounds with Netflix, Apple Plus, and HBO, and all those. I have video, and and let's see what happens. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, good luck. That's
fingers
exciting.
crossed, Edgar. Fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just a quick recap then. If you will have some anger issues and you want to get out some rage, maybe go with Billy Bob's version. And if you want to be a little more friendly, cruelty-free, you can go with Scott's version. So just throwing that out there.
This also, though, is a double-sided heavy-duty swatter. This will kill a lot of bugs too.
Yeah.
So if you got the choice.
You got the choice.
Yeah.
All right, we have Wesley, and then we'll start to wrap up, I think, because we are over the hour. Oh, and then we'll get to Tryman, and I have one last question, and then I definitely want to hear about what's the exciting news you have, Scott. But let's hear Wesley.
So we're gonna be here a while. You might as well grab a cocktail and come back, and we'll just make it a night.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
I know.
Yeah. It's a bit early over here for cocktails, but
you can make an exception.
5 o'clock somewhere, Wesley. Come on, man.
Yeah.
I'm ready. It's 9 o'clock here.
Scott, did you use like a particular method to find and accumulate the people who are helping you on this, like with packaging? And you mentioned, the friend directed you to a factory. Did you have a methodical way, or was it kind of like happenstance and people just kind of showed up somehow, or how did you accumulate the group?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, I was lucky. I could lean on Jim for contacts for packaging, and I had no idea, like even UPC, like how do you get a UPC for your product? Turns out you can go on a website, you buy them, and you download it. It's super easy. The factory, I also leaned on him. I think everything else, honestly, it was a little bit like flying by the seat of my pants, or at least it felt like that. I'm not one of these like incredibly organized, engineer-minded, where I have spreadsheets for everything and it's cataloged and organized. I'm more like throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. Kind of as a personality, I appreciate the super organized people that are extremely methodical. I have a thread of that, but I really appreciate people like that. I'm just not wired like that. I wish I could say, oh yeah, I had it absolutely charted out and I knew exactly where I was going to go for everything, but no. What I was doing is like, I know the direction I'm going. I'm going to stumble forward and stay on my feet as long as I can. I wish I had a more romantic story than that, but it's my attitude was do whatever it takes and get it done. And done is better than perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just me. And that's not advice for anybody else. That was just kind of my journey. I think if you're smarter than me, you will organize, catalog, spreadsheet it out, figure it, like that's a better way to do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Wesley. Angela, you asked a question a moment ago. Has it changed? Do you want to take the mic? Do you want me to?
Sure. Are there any products that you would recommend licensing versus venturing, like in terms of like disruptive products or ones that have like low profit margins, things like that?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't want to venture something with a low profit margin because you need to have some room in there. I think it's wild when you think about all the potential products anybody could come up with. So I would really focus on what do you know well, what do you like, what is your area, what do you spend time thinking about? If you go to Pinterest, like what are you looking at? Like if you're into pet products, Jennifer, like dog products, things like that, if that's your passion, I would focus there. Whether it becomes licensing or venturing could kind of take on its own, just that will roll itself out however it's going to. It'll take on a life of its own. I think I would go into it with a lot of research, like just knowing the category really, really, really well. And when you have ideas that are coming to you, really make sure the runway is clear in terms of IP, but really being with something, especially if you're thinking I could potentially venture this at some point, make sure it's something you like. I have students that have ideas that they don't even like them. They're like, I hate this. I just need to get it off my plate. I'm like, okay, let's talk through that. Let's figure out a way to fall in love with this product that you must have loved at some point in the beginning that you just turned on it. So yeah, as far as, there's so much happening all the time. The landscape, I describe it like it's just shifting under our feet all the time. So I think it's sometimes hard to keep track of what's disruptive this week might not be next week, or like what are those macro trends, and good to know about them. But sometimes it's something as simple as a silly fly swatter that can scoop up the dead fly or whatever, or simpler is better. And really, I think people overcomplicate things a lot with their products. They want to create like the Swiss Army knife, and it's got a light, and it's got a whatever, and it's like too much. So it's less is more. Strip it away. Get to your minimum viable product is what my best advice.
Thanks, Scott, and congratulations on your success. I'm excited to hear about the TV show that you were talking about.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Angela. I just want to add to that too, just expand a little bit, not only maybe have the product that you really like, but the category that you really like, because you're going to be doing a lot of legwork, a lot of effort's going to be put in, and maybe that product itself doesn't work out. But if you're in that category that you really are passionate about, you've already got yourself set up for the next product down the line. You've already made those connections. You've done all the outreach. You have your network already, and that's just going to make the next product much easier to move forward. Even if you have one that's maybe, oh, this seems like an easy one, it could work out, it's cheap, blah blah blah, but it's a whole other kind of boatload of work to do if you're working in a different category and have to build all of those relationships from scratch again. So just my 2 cents. Tryman has asked, hi Scott, you mentioned percent from the net sales. Is that the same with FOB? A company interested in my product said they usually do 3% free on board. Is that the unit price of the product they sell, or do they cut first the materials, labor, etc.? Thanks, Tryman.
Wow. I want to break that down a little bit.
Yeah, please feel free. That's a long one.
So FOB is more about the shipping, the free on board. Like at what point is someone else responsible for the shipping? It's not so much about like percentage of sales in terms of like a licensing agreement or royalties or anything like that. If you're talking about a licensing deal with a company and they're going to pay you 3% of net sales, yeah, what that really, and I don't know if I'm answering this exactly, but you'd want to know, what does that mean? And that should be 3% of the wholesale that they're selling to the company, whatever that number is, minus returns and a few other little things. But yeah, so they're interested in your product. They said they usually do 3% FOB. be, I kind of wonder if they are assuming, is this a venturing question? Like, is this a retailer? I might need more information to really answer this.
Yeah, Tryman, if you want to hop on, Tryman's joining us from Philippines, and I do believe he's at his day job right now, so he can maybe only chime in every now and again. So Tryman, if you could hear us, feel free to join. Oh, are we here? Are we with you?
Hi, Scott.
Hey.
Thanks.
Hi. Yeah, it was a licensing deal. I mean, they were interested in the product and asked for the virtual prototype. They're making samples, and they told me they are usually giving 3% FOB.
Okay.
For royalties.
Okay. Yeah, I think if they're using FOB along with a royalty rate, I've never seen that before. I think I would just clarify with them kind of what the whole process looks like. You know, are they talking about you covering some of the shipping, or does that come out of that? Yeah, I think I would get more information about them. That, first of all, congratulations, they're interested in licensing your product. That's great.
Well done, Tryman. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just, the more important question would be what comes out of the bottom line before you get your 3%.
It doesn't it sound like they're offering 3% of their cost of goods, which would be a very, very low.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was thinking about. If they're using FOB, usually that's, hey, we're paying for the shipping, that's your cost of goods. It sounds like they may be trying to pay you 3% of their cost rather than 3% of their sales to potential wholesalers. Is this a US company?
It has like a branch in the US.
Oh, okay.
Where are their main headquarters, Tryman?
I think it's in China.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would not be super comfortable with 3% if that's their FOB cost, you know, if that's what they're trying to do. I would be more excited about 3% or get them up to 4 or 5 if you can of wholesale. Sounds like you just need to negotiate a little bit with them. That's cool. They're interested. If they're interested, others would be as well.
Such a great point.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that advice, Scott.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Sorry I couldn't give you
Tryman.
a better answer. But congratulations. That's great.
Yes. Very exciting, Tryman. You're doing big things over there.
Yeah.
Dee has asked, hi, Scott, what did the time scale look like from starting the venturing process to getting your first deal?
Oh, okay. First licensing deal?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Dee, is that what you mean? First licensing deal or?
Sorry, I actually meant the venturing deal. So getting into the stores. Yeah.
Oh, into the, yeah. Okay. So from the start of venturing, so starting the process of, okay, we need to get it manufactured, we need to get packaging and all that, it was probably about a year. Once I have the factory samples, I could send those out as samples, knowing that I had a shipment coming. I had to make sure the timelines lined up, but in round numbers, it was probably about a year.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, some people can maybe do it faster. It might take others longer.
Yeah.
That was just kind of my experience with that.
How is shipping nowadays coming from China? What are you averaging delivery time?
30 to 40 days.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No, it's not bad. And I know there's you know, COVID was a big deal, and yeah, that delayed everything. But yeah, right now, knock on wood, that's kind of where they're at. I just put a deposit this week actually for the shipment, and they said it'd be about 30 to 40 days to make it, 30 to 40 on the water.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one last question and then I want to hear about your exciting news. But
Sure.
before we get to that, Scott, I'm wondering if there's anything that you can share about things that you would do differently with licensing and with venturing.
Man, if I could go back and do it again.
Yeah.
No, I think
Or next round.
yeah, there's always another product.
Yep.
I think with licensing, I feel like I did everything I could have done. I think maybe I would have tried to get a better sample sooner. Would that have made a difference? I don't know. But I might have tried to go to more trade shows.
Really?
You know, I went to the Houseware show in Chicago, had made some good contacts there, but there's other trade shows I could have gone to.
Right.
Right. I think with venturing, one of the things would have been thinking through, because there's that excitement, like I just want on store shelves and then it's like, wait a minute, there's a lot of different ways to merchandise things. This could be on a wing rack, it could be on an end display, floor display, tabletop displays. There's a lot of, you know, POS or POP displays.
Yeah.
I would have thought that through sooner. I was just so excited to like, woohoo, it's going to be on store shelves. It's like, oh, aisle 173 in the corner. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You know, so that would have been one thing.
Yeah.
And I think having a really good understanding of the business, running a business, like learning more ahead of time about things like cash flow analysis and some of those other, you know, items, inventory management, and really taking time to really get, I mean, I have a business background, but it was usually working for another company. So that would have been something I recommend that to everybody. Like, if you're committed to doing this and you're going to do it, make sure you know your numbers really well, you know your margins, and you know that have some spreadsheets for your, like a master, you know, worksheets for, you know, different, you know, whether it's going right to the retailer, distributor, and those kinds of things.
Yeah. So I lied.
Yeah.
I do have one more question, Scott. Sorry. But you,
Okay.
at the time of its inception, were you thinking primarily brick and mortar? Because I know you talked about with the Amazon, that length issue popping up, and that was maybe something
Yeah.
you didn't expect. If you could just like touch on that really quickly too. Just
Yeah,
so folks
sure,
understand that
definitely.
18 inches, is it? Or
Yeah, there's a big line at 18 inches. So I was really scared of Amazon. Like, oh, if it's on Amazon, it's going to be knocked off in the first 10 minutes, because it's, once you see it, you kind of get it, you know, and people can order it and they can reverse engineer it or whatever. So I was like, I don't really even want to be on Amazon.
wow.
But then so I'm like, I just was focused on brick and mortar. And then I thought, well, if somebody's knocking it off and they're on Amazon and I'm not, how am I getting off? I need to be there. I need to be there first. It's the world's largest marketplace. So decided to do it, got in there. I was doing FBA and I was getting hammered on the shipping because of the length. So this is a big rule, like 18 inches is a big deal. You go over that, and I was paying for an item that was like, I ordered one and it came in this giant box and it could have been up to 25 pounds. And this is like 3 ounces. I'm like, what is this? And for me, the numbers weren't working. I mean, out of 1995, Amazon was taking about 14 of that. And a big chunk of that was the shipping. So, and that was a 3-pack. So I'm like, all right, this isn't working. I got to go back to the drawing board. I'll just do merchant fulfilled, which I'm doing now. But in the process, because I'm going to be on this show that I'll tell you about in a second, I needed to shorten the swatter to go back to FBA with Amazon so they could do it as like all the Prime customers, right?
Yeah.
It's where you want to be if you're on Amazon. You need to be Prime and the numbers have to work.
Yeah. So
paid some money to the factory to shorten it by 1 inch, actually.
Wild.
That was like $900. I'm like, okay, $900 mistake. Okay, there's another venturing thing, would have done. I had a friend who had been selling on Amazon that actually did mention the 18 inch, like, hey, but it wasn't like, you have to do this. It was like, oh yeah, just be careful, 18 inches, da, da, da. I'm like, oh, okay. But then I'm thinking, I'm not even going to be on Amazon, so who cares? Well, yeah, that's circled back. So
got it. Very, very good point. So Scott, what's the exciting news?
Yeah, so my daughter and I are going to be on a show that has not been announced yet, that's coming out in the fall. It is basically, it's an Amazon show that'll be on Prime that is, it's kind of like Amazon's answer to Shark Tank, but you're not pitching your product to investors. You're pitching it to a live audience of 100 people that decide if they want to buy it or not. And so I jumped through a lot of hoops. It was one of those deals, like I saw something pop up on LinkedIn and I'm like, oh, I wonder what that is. Click down the rabbit hole. Okay, now I'm submitting all this information. And then it, got an email back like, hey, we love your story. This is really cool. We like, the daughter and the bug thing and the scream. That's really cool. Can we set up a call? Sure. Had a great call and then asked a bunch more questions. It was just a lot of hoops to jump through. Ultimately, they wanted a video pitch of my daughter and I for 90 seconds, like how we would pitch the product on the show. And they really loved the idea we came up with to pitch it. And they're like, the producers loved it. Send us these 180 more things. Like it was just all this information and jumping through lots and lots of hoops. And ultimately they said, hey, we want you on the show. So this was last March. So we flew to LA, Sony Studios, really cool experience, met some great people, did all of like the show stuff, the behind the scenes stuff and all the other stuff. And then a lot like of our home and family stuff and walking down by the river and just all the stuff, our cats, like all of that.
Nice.
And yeah, it was really amazing. And insane gag orders because it's a contest. We couldn't really talk about the product. If we had to use the restroom, we had to be escorted. Like it was really strict.
Wow.
But it was really cool. It was a great experience. We had fun. My daughter and I had rehearsed every night, like our pitch. But she's at college, so we were doing this Zoom. So it wasn't even until the night of the hotel that we could do our pitch next to each other.
Oh, wow.
And the flight was delayed in Chicago, like all kinds of stuff. So we got in really late and had to get up really early. And it's like, but you do what it takes, right? You just, you grind it out. So luckily with some coffee and,
adrenaline
and grit.
Yeah.
Just did it. So I'm nervous and excited about it coming out. It hasn't been announced yet. I know that they had Prime Day 16, 17. So I kind of have a hunch they'll announce it fairly soon.
Okay.
So I'll be blowing up social media about the show.
Oh, it's gonna be so great, Scott.
Very excited, really cool experience. And I hope you guys watch it. I don't know when or what episode, but just keep an eye out for an Amazon show of some kind.
We can't wait. You definitely let us know and I'll share it with the group. Make sure everyone has the link and the information they need to get access to it. Also, Swat-N-Scoop, again, 700 stores across the country as well as on Amazon. So you can pick up one of those there. Is there anything else, Scott, that you wanted to share or anything else going on? Any other last minute tips or advice for us folks that are so green or?
Yeah, if you're new to this, it's just keep absorbing information. There's nuggets everywhere. Keep coming back to Jennifer's done an amazing job. I call her Coach Jennifer. Keep coming back, keep grabbing information, never give up. Usually it's just the point or about the point when you are about to give up. Had you stuck it out a little longer, you would have succeeded. I think that's a quote, Thomas Edison or somebody.
Right.
That would be some advice for you guys. There's a reason you're here. There's a reason ideas come to you. Don't ignore that. Honor that. This process is fairly simple and straightforward, but it doesn't mean it's easy. So honor that struggle.
Yeah.
And just do what it takes to keep going, because that's what makes the difference. I mean, if you study famous people throughout history, it was never easy for them. It was never a straight line. They were met with failure and disappointment over and over and over and over, but they just kept getting up.
Right.
And all of a sudden you get up and then you don't get knocked down. It's like, oh, like 41 no's in a row and then like a what? You're interested? Are you kidding me? So
Right.
you never know when that's gonna happen. I appreciate everybody's time and having me on. I feel like this was like not a big sales pitch for Swat-N-Scoop, but it's fun to share the story. If you guys want one of these, they're on Amazon. I might as well do a plug.
Yeah.
I will be packaging it and shipping it to you myself. So that's kind of where I'm at for now until the show comes out in the fall, and then I'm gonna switch to FBA. But yeah, keep the dream alive, you guys. The only way to fail is just to give up.
That's such a great point, Scott. Thank you so much for the inspiration and for sharing your knowledge. I know that all of us are going to be walking out of this call a lot smarter than we were when we walked in. And I always such a pleasure to chat with you. And again, if anyone's interested too in Scott's health journey, there's websites and you can reach out to him. I'm sure he'd be super happy to share that, which is a whole other story. We could do another session just about that, which is really great. But
yeah,
for now, again, huge thank you for being with us, Scott. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you over the last year or so, and I feel so lucky that we crossed paths, and we just really appreciate your positivity and your wisdom, and we wish you all the best and cannot wait to see the show and see what else you have in store in the future. So with that, I wanted just a couple announcements. Next week, we have Sean Davis joining us. He's licensed a few products, and in his own words, it didn't go quite as well as I think he would have liked. So that should be really interesting. We'll learn a lot, I'm sure. If anyone has any recommendations for additional guests or forums that you want to participate in, please reach out. Let me know. We're always open and flexible. Again, we do have our standing Thursday night sessions. So it's either a guest speaker or our really great coffee and catch up sessions. Many of you have attended those, and you can speak to how valuable and beneficial they are for everyone involved. And they're just one of my favorite times of the week. So again, I thank all of you for being a part of that. And I think that's it for now. Let me see. I got the dog barking like a maniac downstairs. Oh yeah, and spread that LinkedIn love. Again, you guys, we are a network, we are a community. The rising tide lifts all ships. So if you haven't sent some endorsements, if you haven't sent any recommendations to your community members, please feel free to do that. Make it a habit, make it a standing. Oh, every Thursday night after our session, or every Monday morning, you put a couple, some goodwill out there and support your community members. I think it really makes a difference when you're reaching out to companies and they look and see on your page that you're a friendly, amicable, talented, creative person that people like to partner with. Again, people are going to hire people or take on deals with people that they want to work with, that they like. So these things maybe won't change the whole course of time, but I think they could make a big difference. So I encourage you to do that. And I think that's it for now. I got to get that dog out. So you guys, it's such a pleasure. I hope to see you next week. Thank you all for being part of the community. Any questions, any comments? You know how to reach out to Scott. You know how to reach out to each other. We have the Innovators Roundtable LinkedIn page. You can post in there, but please be forewarned that it does not notify all of the members as it should. So any questions, anything else? Thanks, Keith. Thanks for the support there in the chat. You know how to reach me, and you know how to reach each other. And I would just encourage you to do that. Keep on inventing, keep on innovating, and looking forward to when we celebrate the next success story. So with that, have a really wonderful night. Thanks, everybody. Especially thanks again to all of you that are joining us from wild, different time zones tonight. I know it's not easy. Dee, Wesley, Tryman, who else am I forgetting? I'm not sure, but you know who you are, and we appreciate you so much. So with that, good night, everybody.
Thanks, Jennifer. Hollywood
Thanks,
Scott
everybody.
and Hollywood
Yeah.
Scott. My new name for
Thank
you.
you. Have a
Hollywood
great night,
Scott.
everyone.
It's so good.
I love it. We're
We love
stronger
that.
together, you guys. Keep coming back. Keep the
Exactly.
community alive. So
Exactly. It's such a good group. Everyone has so much to offer and comes from very different backgrounds with really interesting insights. And it's just, well, you all know, you're all, you know, most of you have been here multiple times, so you know what you're working with here. So anyway,
Yeah,
take
thanks,
good care.
Jennifer.
great
Thanks.
job, Jennifer.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
your
so much,
extended
Scott.
time, Scott.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Anytime, you guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, Christopher.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
Derek. Bye, Michael. Bye, everybody. Bye,
Bye.
Pam. Pamela's here. I saw in there she is.
Hi.
Pamela.
Bye.
Bye, Pam. Bye, Pam. We'll see you next
This
week.
is like, no, you hang up first. No, you hang
I
up.
know. I'm doing it now. 3, 2, 1. Bye.
God